Now, with that said, let us move on to our penultimate question. We have so many different ways to go about doing something. Why did I need another way to format strings? In Python 3, we gained the ability to, or Python 3.6, we gained the ability to do another kind of formatting, the f-string formatting. But just as a very quick review, all the way back in the Python 2 days, we had this %style, printf style formatting. And you can see here an example. I have 3 values, and I'm using %s. And I have a couple of other things I can do here. I can use the printf style specifiers. So I can say print the date as a d, or print the value as a d, I mean. And if you're going to do that, 0 pad it. Or if you're going to 0 pad it, print it as a floating point with some digits after the decimal point. I can do all those sorts of things. And I can even say, print this date not as a string, but as a repr type object. That's about the flexibility it gives me. And for the most part, this mimics really closely your C-style printf. If I want to, I can pass multiple arguments, and I can put that into a tuple, and I can pass that in. So here you can see the message, the date, and the value. But there arises one of the first things that made us dissatisfied with the %style string formatting. Because if I had a tuple, and I wanted to print that tuple out, this would fail. What happens is, when I want to pass 3 arguments to be formatted, it's ambiguous with passing 1 argument that I want to have formatted as a whole. And because there's that ambiguity, we would see this problem all the time. Wait, the data that we're about to print out using this formatting, is it a tuple or not? If we're not sure, it could be ambiguous. And here, it's expecting there to be 2 other things to print out because you passed a tuple just like in this line, but you didn't. And so back in those days, people would do things like this. Pack these things always, even if there's only one of them, in one extra layer of a tuple, just so that we don't have this ambiguity, just so that it's very clear. And note that when we do this, we actually have to parenthesize this as a consequence of the next problem. And the next problem is this. If we have chained printf style formatting, notice that it binds this first, and then it binds this next. And what you can see is the order in which it performs these operations, the precedence of this thing, can be problematic. Because if you wanted to operate on a computed value here, you would have to parenthesize this computed value. And so, yet another thing that kind of irritates us. Additionally, if we wanted to customize the formatting of something beyond what the C-style, printf style can allow, beyond the number of digits after a decimal point, even simple things like whether we want to print this with commas separating the digits or whatnot, not possible. And so what we'd have to do is we'd have to first format the data, like format the date, and then pass it in here. And you can think, if you were defining a report that needed to be reported, you want to set up, here's my template for the report. And here you put the date, and here you put the date. When you're writing the template, you usually know how you want those dates to be printed out, whether you want them printed out in year, month, day, or in this human readable format, you know that. But with the printf style, % style formatting, at the application of the template, you have to decide what you want to do every single time, and that can be clumsy, and people can get that wrong, and it's just one more thing to remember, and it's really not the responsibility of the person applying the template to have to know how the dates should be formatted. It's really the responsibility of the person who created the template to determine, well, here's my spot where you fill it in. Here's what I want out of that date object. Additionally, if we wanted to print out a value multiple times, like a report that has something at the top and the same thing at the bottom, well, we could do that with a printf style formatting. We just repeat the value, but you can think that this is going to get really messy if we have these things repeat multiple times. Or we could do this with the dictionary passed in to the % style formatting, and we can name them. And you still see this syntax used when you're looking at prepared statements for SQL libraries. You can sometimes see that they use this syntax for indicating where to fill in the blanks. But in Python 3 and backported to Python 2.7, the advanced string formatting was added. And the advanced string formatting solved many of these issues. It's unambiguous whether I am giving 1 element or 2 elements because this thing takes star args. I guess that is instance pattern that I said was wrong. Actually, kind of makes sense here because here we see an ambiguity. Is it a tuple or not? Well, they use star args to ensure that it is unambiguously either a single element of data or a collection. So this just works. If we have some expression we want to compute, well, it's clear that this gets computed before it's applied. If we have some repeated value, we can specify these by the position in which they occur. Give me the 0th thing that was passed in, then the first thing, then the 0th thing. If we want to format it nicely, we can put formatting specifiers in here, and we have a much richer set of formatting specifiers. Here, if we make this value much bigger, we can see a much richer set of formatting specifiers, and this is Python 2. So there we go, like comma separation. And for things like dates, notice it is now the template that has decided how the date's going to be formatted, not the data. And so if we want this kind of named version, we can even do the named version, very similar to passing in the dictionary to the percent style. In Python 3, they extended this even further, and they added a format map that allows you to pass this dictionary like this. And one of the reasons for that was maybe this dictionary is programmatically generated. Maybe what you want to do is you want to pass in your local variables, all your local variables for formatting. And you can think here what somebody wants to do is they want to say, oh, I don't want to have to re-specify what the mapping between one variable, because it's quite redundant here. Instead, just give it all my local variables, and it'll pick out the local variables that I want. Python 3.6 literal string interpolation was added with PEP 498, the so-called f-string. And here's what the f-string looks like. It looks almost exactly like the advanced string formatting, except instead of doing a dot format, which admittedly can be a little bit clumsy, what you do is you put an f at the beginning, and it's kind of like that format map where you're passing in locals. It just fills in the spots with the names of the arguments, and you can put them in any order, and you can apply this custom formatting. And by the way, this formatting is extensible. There's a protocol behind it. Here, let's do this. Let me just return the format. I can do, let's take a T object, and I'll show you. You can see this is the format that's being passed to this T object. And so you can actually customize these formatting specifiers for your custom objects. So you can create a library of your custom objects that make sense for your organization, and then people can write reports with their templates, and in their templates they can put the colon, and you can say, oh, this means this, this means this, this means this. You're going to have to, figure out how to parse these, and you have to create a little DSL, but in practice it works pretty okay. Now, why does this matter? Why do we need both of them? And when do we need to use one versus the other? And this comes back to the same locality question. Again, what do you know and when do you know it? The reason why it matters that there's an f-string is not just because it's more convenient. And the reason why it matters to know that there's an advanced string formatting is not just because, you see it in Python 2 code. Generally, you don't really need to know that the percent style formatting exists anymore. I don't think there's any circumstances that require the percent style formatting that cannot be covered by the advanced string formatting or the f-string, except maybe working with Python versions before 2.7. So if you have, heaven forbid you have Python 2 code, but even worse than that, you have Python 2.5 code, well, then maybe you need to know about the percent style. But the f-string and the advanced string formatting are actually two different things, and there's a meaningful distinction, and it's worth knowing both of them, and it comes down to this question of locality. Here's what the question looks like. Do you have the data available at the same time when you have the template available? If you do, use the f-string. If you don't, use the advanced string formatting. In other words, what the advanced string formatting allows you to do is it allows you to define the template format ahead of time before the data even exists. So this is non-local, both spatially and temporally. This is created way before the data ever exists, and it creates in a different file before the data exists, and you can specify, oh, the report looks like this, and you can look at this and locally reason about this. Oh, I know what the report's going to look like. It's going to be a date that's formatted this way, it's going to be a value formatted this way, and you can even do some nice little alignment tricks. And then, later on, somebody applies this. Honestly, something that I often do is I say, nobody's going to want to introspect the actual characters of this string. Maybe the most they would want to do is indent it using text wrapped at indent or dedent. But if they don't want to do that, sometimes I'll even do this. I'll make this the function itself. So this is just an arbitrary callable. And then that gives me the ability to do arbitrary further transformations to extend this without having to change the call site. But whatever the case may be, fundamentally, you can see with the advanced string formatting, you have distance between where the template is created and where the template is applied. However, with the f-string, the idea of the f-string is there is no distance. You have the data, and the data is available at the same point in time when it is going to be applied to some formatting. And so very much like that lambda, this is the idea that, oh, this is some sort of ad hoc formatting that exists for just this one line of code, but doesn't need to exist as a template anywhere. And maybe this means don't extract this as a template. This is just this one line of code, and it just is affected here. Otherwise, you could think that, if you wanted to move this around or you wanted to kind of put this on a line, somebody might change that template. They might get a dependency on that. This is ad hoc formatting where the data coexists with the template.